I'm just going to let it go. Let it go. Nothing scripted. Just connect. Da-da. Heart, soul, connect. Out. You got it? Head, heart, out. This is what psychopaths don't have. Head and heart. We'll talk about that one day. Because the word psychopaths are used far, far too much. A lot going on today. A lot to discuss. A couple of things first. Thank you so much for the great comments. The emails are wonderful from all over the world. I answer them, and I wish I could just I devote my time. If you spend enough time to write me, I'm going to write you something back. It's me. I don't have a lot of time to go into these multi-part disquisitions and treatises that you have, but I will acknowledge them, and I do read them, and I appreciate them. I really do, because there's nothing worse than when you write somebody and they don't even respond. But I will. But the areas, I received one from a woman who's some type of a communications arts teacher in Cork, Ireland, and then Serbia, New Zealand, Russia, a lot of Russia, Australia. Funny, great stuff from Australia. I don't know, I get 2 or 3 people. I don't want to talk about the entire continent, but the point is, wonderful, wonderful observations, and I thank you. But let's do a couple of things. First of all, I don't know about you, but let's not talk about the Clintons ever again. I know I'm going to violate that. I know I'm going to do it because I so loathe and detest, not them, but how they have squandered the law and how they don't seem to care about the law. Forgive me for drinking coffee as I spit, but this is my crack. This is my drug. That's it. That's it. Nothing. I do nothing. My coffee is my intoxicant. I'm a plant-based vegan. That's my thing, and I'm not trying to preach that to you, but it clears your head like you can't believe. Except coffee is my thing, so you must hear me slurp or whatever. Couple of things. First, happy veterans, and let's talk about Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen. I'm not going to be one of these people who says, I'm going to tell you how my sense of loss of Leonard Cohen is greater than yours. No, I'm not going to do that. But here's what I loved about him. Here's a guy who said, I'm going to do things my way. Here's a guy who retreats and repairs to a Buddhist enclave until he finds out that his accountant ripped him off of $5 million and he had to come back and tour, which was great for people. But if I told you, imagine there was an audition, and you said, hi, my name is Leonard Cohen. Let's assume nobody's ever heard of him. I'd like to do a few songs for you. Here's my first song. Everybody knows the start. Hallelujah. Now, I'm not mocking him, please. But people would have said, whoa, 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 hey. And they wouldn't have listened to him because he was so different. There are people who just don't listen. But look at what he did. Read his words. Sometimes, I'm sorry, some of the Cohen stuff is better appreciated through other people. I know that sounds crazy. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious or heretical here. But it's true. Jennifer Warnes did. First we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. That's of course, my Ethel Merman tribute to Leonard Cohen. But Kenny Rankin was like that. Kenny Rankin could sing your song better than you. And he was singing in a way, he was a great friend of mine. But he would sing it in a way that you thought, I never thought about that. Why didn't I think it like that? He'd slow it down and speed it up. But Leonard Cohen, and that's why we've got to put money and emphasis as a tribe, as a species, in music education, in the arts. This is the most important thing that we as human beings do. Other than, of course, perpetuate humanity and the like. But it's artistic, not war, not killing, that sort of thing. It's that. So Leonard Cohen, let's face it, now people are going to come out of the woodwork and recognize him after the fact. And I, by the way, am going to do a few things where I want to bring my passion is Nick Drake. I listen to Nick Drake every day of my life. nobody has ever had this. I can't get away from this guy. I play the guitar. I'm going to do some tunes for you one day, but everything, his guitar playing, oh my God, he's amazing. All right. Speaking of Leonard Cohen and death, good segue, huh? This is one of my cherished books because people say sometimes, what is this stuff? It just so happens I just like this angle because of the light. I'm very, very bare bones here. Very bare bones. I'm looking about getting a lighting system so I can do this. You don't have these shifts of light. It is what it is. It's what I am. But anyway, people say, what is this? This, by the way, is my Emmy. How about that, huh? This is a book which I read. It's the book I read. And of them, How We Die by Sherwin Newland changed my life. Especially in view of Leonard Cohen. Why is that? Because it was so mystical to me, even as a kid. Where do they go? What happened to Uncle Valentine? Where did he go? Death has always fascinated me. And my parents, my mother in particular, never hid death from us. Any of my relatives who died, we'd go. I'll never forget the first time I ever saw a dead body was Valentine, my Tia Pepina, my Sicilian aunt's husband, one of many. She was a little out of it, but I loved this guy, Valentin Alvarez. Great guy. Just loved him. Thought he was just always in a good mood and Anyway, he's dead. He's dead. And I was a kid. I thought, what do you mean he's dead? What happened to him? That's him. That's him. What do you mean dead? Okay, I understand the concept of death. Yeah. But where did he go? Meaning, and even then I was searching for the spiritual, the him, the spirit, the guy who always smiled and made me laugh. Who is this? This is his spacesuit. This is what he used to contain his spirit, and now he's elsewhere. Anyway, I don't understand. Where does he go? And my mother, by the way, would say, go ahead, touch him. I'll never forget that. Touch him. It's not terrible. No, touch him. Feel him. My wife dissenting. This is death. Don't demystify it. Understand, this is not him. Well, nobody's pushing my hand like here. Grab it. No, of course, if I said no, she's not going to say, touch him, goddammit, touch him. Smell him. I know, no. But it was this connection, this object permanence, this Piaget, is when things leave. It's the focus. Then when I was a prosecutor, there was, we have, you go to the murder scenes, and there would be the morgue, and you never saw, let's face it, most of the time when you see death, it's like Valentine. It was this controlled, the music, kind of a little organ music in the background, something pink, the pink lighting to give the notion of, life to this cadaver, the profusion of chemicals, giving it that orange tint and kind of the varnish of humanity, so to speak. So, but then when you see him, you see autopsies and you see dead people in slabs, or you go into a room and there's a leg on the ground. You say, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to see it like that. This isn't death. Then you ask the questions. Let's really get into this is tragic death. The 4 types of death. Remember this NASH. Think of this acronym. Acronym. Excuse me. I need more coffee. NASH. N-A-S-H. Natural. Accidental. Suicide. Homicide. 4 possibilities. That's it. But what Newland did in How We Die, this was a Yale surgeon who himself died, but he explains the mechanics of death, and it's the easiest thing there is. And the joke used to always be, it's not a joke, but people would say, hey, so-and-so died? What happened? We would say, his heart stopped. And, and people would never really think about, well, yes, that indeed, is one of the main requirements or essential elements of death. But what Newland writes is, he says, we are an obligate aerobe. It's the lack of oxygen. That's what does it. That's the end. That is the finale. That is the cessation, permanent ischemia. Very simple. Very simple. Organ failure. Decomposition fascinates me. When you demystify death, believe it or not, it liberates you from the fear and makes you appreciate life more, and also takes away a lot of the sadness. Number one. When people belabor the point, kind of like these snowflakes who don't understand that we had an election here and not a coup. But when you misunderstand the gravity of something, it affects your ability to put it into perspective. And that's why death, with people that we know, people that we appreciate, Leonard Cohen. But think about this. You have his music. You have his breath, his sound, his lungs, his brain, his voice, his being, YouTube, his concerts, who he was, where all of that. He's here. He does not leave. There is no end to Leonard Cohen. There is the cessation, the removal of the spacesuit. If I take a pill bottle and shatter the pill bottle, the pills are still there. And that's probably one of the worst analogies I could ever think of. But the point is, this is a covering. And this is not religion. This is not about God. This is not about any of that. And if you want to, have at it. Because religion, as you know, is man-made. We just came up with that. And it's like Dungeons and Dragons with permanency. It's a great system of rules with books and volumes and altars and candles and hats and priests and shaman and it's legitimized by other people that we respect. And we say, well, there must be something to it. Why? Well, you couldn't pull this con off unless there was something to it. Obviously, there must be something. All these people could not possibly be believing in something that wasn't true. You don't have this many people believing in the resurrection of Christ or Muhammad or Abraham or whatever the hell it is. That's not for me to argue. That's your game. That's your thing. That's not it. But what I'm telling you is get away from that and look at the real world. I know for a fact, under known and proven conservation of energy and the conservation of momentum and everything else, but conservation of energy, nothing ever leaves. It is merely transmuted. It's transmogrified. It is shifted into something else. Now, that part we've got to figure out. That's the thing. What is that other part? Then reason we found out through particle physics, and I've been saying this, and I know this sounds convoluted. And let me just apologize in advance. People who talk about quantum mechanics, whenever somebody talks about that, you know they're full of shite. They don't know what they're talking about. Because people who are quantum mechanics, they're not sure what this means. It's this wonderful thing that happened. Einstein comes along and he says to Newton, guess what? Your gravity world is a little bit strange. Everything that you thought is wrong. Mass changes. Time changes. But light stays the same. What? What are you talking about? What? Fantastic. And he did this on his own with a thought experiment. Then later on, but that was great. That's Einstein. That's relativity for big stuff. That's light and planets and waves and big stuff. Ooh, look, you could see theoretically behind planets because light bends and time space and these indentions, these little divots and these curvatures, all that stuff. Great. At the subatomic, completely different story. This is wild. This is the wild ride. This is insanity. This is crazy. Schrodinger's cat. Electrons being in 2-3 places at the same time. The whole notion of mass. I mentioned this before. The whole notion of the Higgs field and anyway. So recently they found out that they believe that Max Planck Institute and others have posited, opined, and believed that there are little quanta. A quantum is a packet of energy. Little quanta of almost like microtubules or something that they believe when somebody dies, and you've heard about these near-death experiences, they believe that this little quantum packet is released, is kind of hanging in limbo there, and it gets a chance to reconnect, revalidate itself, reconnect, reattach, or it goes off. And if it goes off, that means it goes someplace there. Ergo, therefore, life does not end upon death. If that's not groovy, I don't know what is. Now, isn't that Jesus and harps and God and seeing? I don't know. I'm not. It's your fantasy too. You can play with it. I don't know. But still, that's where that is. Okay. Now, next, enough of that. Veterans Day. Veterans Day. There is nothing that scares me more than not the patriotic, the militaristic patriotic. See, that's the one that scares me. I look at veterans like I do guns. I have, for most of my adult life, always enjoyed, I used to, not so much now, but I used to love pistol shooting. I'm a big Second Amendment fan. I am fascinated by the very simple construction, the engineering genius of the 1911, the 45, the Colt. Best gun. It's like the AK-47 of handguns. It's just perfect. The difficulty of hitting something, putting a round downrange, tight patterns, recovering. A pistol is the only thing you cannot recover. With a rifle, I can guarantee you that with every shot, depending upon how I cradle it, I can hold it in such a way, by virtue of my chin, or I'm on the ground, or I'm prone, or a resting post, I can replicate and duplicate shots afterwards. I can't with a pistol, because it's away from me. That's the art. That being said, they scare me. I respect them. The devastation they can provide is unbelievable. And I don't like when somebody says, hey, you want to see my gun? No. Get out of the house. When somebody says, would you like to see me? Real gun aficionados, real gun experts, they don't show you this stuff. It's not a plaything. And they will go through the most insane safety measures, clearing the chamber 1,000,000 times, opening up cylinders. It's a never-ending validation constantly of proof. Look at Terry Kath. I think the greatest rock guitarist of all time. Was it 1978? Shot himself. Quote by he was high or drunk at the same time. But with a 9mm, had one racked in the chamber and shot himself. No. Well, through this circuitous analogy comes the problem that I have when people talk about the military. Support the troops, okay, but not support war. The two have nothing to do with each other. When we go to the NFL and we see planes fly over, you see formation, tight formation. When you see and you find that military are paying the NFL, and the NFL is charging for these rhapsodic, militaristic, almost these fetishistic guns, and connecting the meme. As you know, I'm a psychologist kind of at heart, and I go for the feeling, the connection, supporting the troops, respecting them, paying for them, helping them, especially when they go and they are ravaged by what happens during war. When they are beyond, that has nothing to do with, hey, let's send them out over. We're the greatest fighting force in the world. We can do it. Let me tell you something. It is still cosmically amazing to me how this country does not understand the Korean War. I was watching, it was a wonderful American Master. Was that American Masters? I don't know what it was, but it was a great thing. And I have been following this for years. But the Chosin Reservoir is ungodly what happened, and how Mao and these people. Here's another one. You know, The Art of War, right? Sun Tzu, as they say. This is life. This has nothing to do with war. Mao figured exactly what he would do. He knew that with the Marines, I mean, this is so stupid. I knew this. To have one highway, one road, and they would come out, fire, engage the Americans and then back off. So what did the Americans do? What did the Marines especially? They went in after them out of this hubris, and they set them up. They had them surrounded because they were drawing them in. And then when you're in North Korea, and then you realize, okay, we got to get out of here. You've got to retreat back to the landing and through the same dirt road where I can bomb, and they did. I mean, they bombed bridges. I mean, it was incredible. O.P. Smith, the most incredible Marine general who saved. Thomas Ricks has some great lectures on him. He saved them. This is the Americans. You don't understand something about this war. I know this. When you go to their country, their land, their place, you have a disadvantage that you will never be able to overcome. Never. It's Shelby Foote talks about this, perhaps apocryphal, but this moment when there was a Union soldier, a general or something, who asked this captured Confederate, "Why are you fighting us?" He said, "Because you're here. Because I live here." And there is a guy, you know this, when you are playing around with, let's say you went into the woods, God forbid, think Deliverance, but there are folks who know every hamlet, every tree, every rock, every cave. They can blend in. Look at Street Fight. Look at Fallujah, the insurgents. And you know that whatever happened, they're going to lie. They're not going to tell you, boy, we are royally. Look at the terrain. Look at the people. Look at this. Look at what happens when you're in a street, when you're in Fallujah, and you're saying, who are the bad guys? They slip in. They are, let me tell you something. If somebody came to this country from some other place, Canadians, that would be nice, wouldn't it? If Canadians came in and started from Buffalo and Niagara, started, moving in, folks who never would get along, Black Lives Matter folks, Hillary snowflakes, Trump supporters, hard hats, and anteaters, remember that one? Circumcised or uncircumcised? Anyway. People who would never have anything in common. And I saw this on 9/11. I saw it that day. People talking to each other that normally was like, whoa. Oh, as the great Cam Fong, as Chin Ho said, Hawaii 5-0, we're all in this together, brother. Remember that one? Oh, we would get along. You would see nothing. In fact, Reagan used to talk all the times about what would happen if an extraterrestrial, EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity, UFO, space critter, came to this country. And what would it be like if they all of a sudden met us, who turned and all of a sudden joined in this unique coalition? Palestinians and Jews, Pakistanis and Indians. I mean, everybody say, forget this nationalism. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that this is the most important information never to get out. But war is horrible. And here's the bottom line. Here's the thing. And this is where I'm not ashamed of America. I'm ashamed of my countrymen who are so freaking stupid, it's not even funny. If you haven't figured out that the ideology behind something is critical, if you go back and reread history. Now listen, especially if you're a young'un out there, you're a youngster, take it from me, the L train, listen to me. I hated history because I hated my history teachers. They were awful. They always gave us the worst teacher. The coach was always like, world history. Why him? Why? He's a track coach. He doesn't know anything. Charlemagne! I went to Jesuit high school in Tampa. Ooh, this big, private school. We had the worst. I'm not going to go into name names. Some are dead now, but it was like, you've got to be kidding me. And what you have to understand is that history, as Tolstoy said, and this is what you have to remember. Remember this. Just tattoo this on your forehead, whatever you do. Remember this. History would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. And history not only repeats itself, it's a continuous line. It's not that history is over. No. When the Beatles stopped recording, it might have been the end of the Beatles, but it wasn't the end of music. It continues. History, it's the same theme, the same. Some things are different. War is horrible. So what I'm trying to say in this rambling disquisition is that while we respect the veterans, let's make war obsolete. Let's say, we don't have to go for war for this. Here's one for you. Ask people this one. You and I are still kind of getting to know each other. You're trying to get to know me. But 9/11 did a number on me like you can't believe, especially because I was here. Ask anybody that you know, why are we in Afghanistan? Why? Why? Give me an idea. Vietnam, we said, well, it's very simple because communism, they thought, was this metastatic cancer that was spreading throughout, that was going from Vietnam all the way up into China and Laos and Thailand and Japan, just spreading, meeting with Russia and China. And all right, it was a post-Cold War, post-World War II. Remember these OSS guys who were CIA eventually? That mentality. Okay. What they didn't tell you was, they said, well, really, the reason why we're going in is because of the rice. We want the rice. This is or their oil, or their chocolate, or their... No, it wasn't about natural, wealth, which is what we do today. Granted, there was always a concomitant force and vector of those individuals who were making oodles of money through the military-industrial complex. That's always a factor. Always. Ike was right about that. But for the most part, it was purely an ideological basis, even though it was just obscenely insane at the time. Now, that notwithstanding, what we're doing now is, Afghanistan in particular, just happens to be the Saudi Arabia of lithium. And this is the part that is so obvious. It was in the New York Times. It was written about everywhere. You didn't see it. They're not talking about it on CNN. Why? Because they're idiots. Or MSDNC or any place. That subject matter, for some reason, it's like we have this... You know how they have the adult hour? You can't say certain words unless it's after 10 o'clock. Well, there's certain subject matters you don't talk about, and that's one of them. Libya, I still find this amazing. The next currency of war, not casus belli as much, but the next currency, the next thing that we're going to seize is water. Also rare earth metals and the like, but water. And as I've told you before, you can look this up, Libya happened to sit atop the Nubian sandstone aquifer, which happens to be really what we want. Because what you're not hearing about is, in the old days when the Brits would come in on horseback with a guy with the ostrich plume and come into South America, they wanted gold. They took the gold. That was it. And then later on in the 20s, oil. Then the military became basically protection units for oil seizure. And then later on, it became now rare earth metals. And the reason why that's important is you have to mine so much to get a de minimis, a paucity, a dearth, a chanking, an ort of rare earth metals. So we're not going to do that here. I mean, hell, you think fracking is stuff? Imagine the environmental group, and good for them, by the way, would raise all kinds of holy hell if you just basically had to destroy a forest to get a teaspoonful of whatever it is. But China, they can do it. And where else? Africa. And that's why we're going to Africa next, no matter who's the president. Okay? That's important to know. And finally, this is the most important aspect of this, we're being told, the American public is being told this line of nonsense. So suffice it to say, while we respect the veterans, we honor the veterans, we should take care of them, stop war. They're not invincible. You're not going to go after terrorism with an F-35 Raptor or drones or any of that stuff. Terrorism is an ideology. It's like trying to catch smoke with your hands. You're missing the point. It's like declaring war on bullets. So I'm going to end it with that. I'm also going to say parenthetically, we're going to talk about this in the next couple of my lectures, my disquisitions and sermons and the like. It turns out that the election was not rigged as I predicted and others did, especially when we were seeing all of this voter fraud about machines. And I said, here it comes, there it was. Luckily, of course, Hillary's going to think it was rigged. I guess rigged's in the eye of the beholder. But it turns out that the election process is not rigged, unless it was rigged, and we don't know it, unless it was made not to look rigged, which is a different story. But what's also important to note is that the media were rigged. We'll talk about that. That's going to be an ongoing discussion of mine, is how the media let you and me down. Okay, that's enough at 32 minutes into this thing. Notice, no script, no prompter, no commercials, no nothing. You and me talking. Have you noticed that? Think about that. How many times do you hear something on TV or radio where they're broadcasting to you, where you feel like you're just one of this huge crowd of people? That's not what this is. It's me talking to you, right across from the table. We're having some coffee.